The small town of Elmsworth was the kind of place where people knew each other by name, yet rarely by heart. It was a town of quiet judgment and hushed gossip, a place where generosity was sometimes mistaken for foolishness. In the heart of this town lived Ineka Morris, a young woman of 24 who was known more for her kindness than for any wealth or possession. She lived in a modest one-room apartment above an old bakery, working as a cleaner at the town's community center and part-time at a local diner. She wore secondhand clothes, rode a bicycle with a broken bell, and carried an old tote bag that had faded from years of use. But her smile was warm, and her heart even warmer. People often shook their heads at Ineka. Too kind for her own good, they would mutter. And they weren't entirely wrong. Ineka gave away most of what she had: leftover meals from the diner, old clothes she mended and handed out, and hours of her time helping the elderly, the sick, or the lonely. Her friends often moaned about it. Ineka, her best friend Clara, would sigh, "You can't save the whole world. You barely have enough for yourself." But Ineka would simply smile and say, "It's not about how much you have. It's about how much you're willing to give." Ineka's kindness didn't come from ease. It came from pain. She had been an orphan since the age of 15. Her mother, Abigail, a sweet woman with gentle eyes, had passed away from cancer after years of suffering. Her father had died when Ineka was just 9. With no relatives willing to take her in, Ineka had been shuffled from shelter to shelter, struggling to finish school, cleaning homes to pay for her books and food. She remembered her mother's last words like they were tattooed on her soul. "Ineka, life may not always be fair to you, but don't let the darkness in others dim the light in you. Help people. Always help people. Even when it hurts." And so she did. Every day since. It was on one chilly afternoon, while on her way home from the diner, that she first saw the old man. He was sitting on the cold pavement near the abandoned mill, his legs wrapped in tattered blankets, a crutch by his side, a faded cup in front of him. His beard was overgrown, and his clothes were worn and dirty. Many passed him by, pretending not to see. But Ineka stopped. "Sir, are you hungry?" she asked gently. The man looked up slowly, his eyes sharp yet sunken, as if they'd seen too many winters. He nodded, barely saying a word. Without hesitation, Ineka opened her bag and handed him the 2 meat pies she had planned to eat for dinner. She also took off her scarf and gently wrapped it around his shoulders. "I work at the diner up the road," she said. "Come by tomorrow. I'll pack you a warm meal." The man blinked, his expression unreadable. "Why would you do that?" Ineka smiled. "Because everyone needs kindness, even you." From that day on, she made it a routine. After every shift, she would stop by to feed him, clean his little corner, and talk with him for a while. Over time, she learned his name was Mr. James, and that he stayed in a tiny, run-down house at the very end of the town near the woods. It had no electricity, barely any furniture, and a leaking roof. So Ineka began to do more. She swept his floors, patched his clothes, and sometimes even skipped her lunch to buy medicine for him. He never asked for anything, but she gave anyway. "You don't owe me anything," Mr. James once said with a crooked smile. "I know," Ineka replied. "That's the best part. But not everyone saw it that way." Her boyfriend, Marcus, a construction worker she had dated for nearly a year, grew frustrated with her devotion to the old man. "I don't get you," he snapped one evening. "You're always broke, always tired, and now you're playing nursemaid to a beggar who probably lies for a living?" "He's not lying," Ineka replied quietly. "And even if he is..." Marcus crossed his arms. "Let the government help him. Let someone else waste their life. But if you keep wasting yours, don't count on me to wait around." Ineka's heart tightened. "So that's what my kindness is to you? A waste?" "If helping him means losing me," Marcus said coldly, "then make your choice." And she did. Without another word, she turned and walked away. She cried that night, because love hurt and because rejection was familiar. But she didn't regret it. She remembered her mother's voice again. Help people, even when it hurts. At that same moment, in a dark room at the edge of Elmsworth, Mr. James sat quietly in the corner of his home. Gone was the tattered blanket. Gone was the limp. In its place, he sat upright, clean, watching the window. He had seen many people in his life. Rich ones, proud ones, fake ones. But none like her. Maybe, just maybe, he whispered to himself, you're the one. Weeks passed, and Ineka's routine remained unchanged. Each evening after work, she rode her squeaky bicycle to the edge of town where Mr. James lived in his weathered house, nestled behind a patch of thorny bushes and untrimmed grass. The house, though small, began to show signs of care. The windows were now clean, the front steps swept. The walls, once hidden behind years of dust and cobwebs, now glowed with a fresh coat of whitewash, done by Ineka during her weekends. People continued to talk. Ineka's wasting her time with that old beggar, Mrs. Grant, the seamstress, said to her customer one morning. Does she think being kind will feed her? She let Marcus go over that old man, another added with a dramatic gasp. Imagine that. But Ineka didn't mind. Their words had no power over her purpose. She was more concerned about Mr. James's health. The man coughed a lot and sometimes winced in pain when standing, though he never complained. Whenever she brought soup or medicine, he'd chuckle and say, "You treat me like a king." "You deserve to be treated like a human," she'd reply. Despite his rough appearance, Mr. James was incredibly sharp. His voice was wise, his stories rich with history, and his questions deep. "You ever wonder why people turn cruel?" He asked her one afternoon as they sat outside under the sun. "Sometimes," Ineka replied. "I think people get tired of being kind without seeing results. Or maybe they were never shown kindness to begin with." He stared at her thoughtfully. "And yet, you remain kind." "Because someone was kind to me once," she said, "even if it was just for a little while." He nodded slowly, but said nothing more. What Ineka didn't know, however, was that Mr. James was not who he claimed to be. 15 years ago, James Whitmore was one of the richest real estate developers in the country. He had built empires, hotels, estates, resorts. But tragedy struck when his wife Evelyn and 2 teenage children were killed in a horrific car accident on their way to surprise him on his birthday. He had been working late at his office. The grief nearly destroyed him. He tried therapy, he tried traveling, he tried giving everything away to charity, but nothing healed the wound. That was when he made a drastic decision. He vanished, sold his name, moved to Elmsworth, took on the life of a nobody, pretending to be a crippled beggar. He needed to know, if stripped of everything, who would see him as a man and not a wallet? Who could see his pain, not just his potential? For years, he had watched people pass him by. Some would give coins and walk off. Some would scold him to get a job. Others ignored him altogether. But Ineka, she stayed. She gave with her whole heart, asking for nothing in return. And she had done it consistently, with humility, with joy. And now, as he watched her scrub his tiny kitchen floor again with her sleeves rolled up, humming a soft hymn, James felt something stir in him for the first time in years. Hope. That night, he made a call. A private one. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore," a smooth voice answered from the other end. "It's time," James said. "Prepare the estate." "You're sure, sir? She's the one." Back in town, Ineka walked home under the stars. She was exhausted, but fulfilled. She didn't know that her life was about to change. That the very man she had poured so much kindness into had seen her heart and was preparing to give her a world she never dreamed of. But while fate prepared blessings in silence, trouble stirred elsewhere. One evening, as she dropped off a warm meal for Mr. James, she didn't notice that Marcus, her ex-boyfriend, was standing by the old oak tree, watching. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed. "She really chose that crippled fool over me?" he muttered. He walked away into the shadows, unaware that in trying to ruin her, he would soon expose something far bigger than he ever imagined. It was a Friday morning when the letter came. Ineka had just finished mopping the diner floor when the postman handed her an envelope, addressed to her in elegant gold-embossed handwriting. She blinked at it, confused. She rarely received letters, certainly not one sealed with a wax stamp. She opened it slowly. You are cordially invited to the Whitmore estate for a private dinner and announcement. Date Saturday evening, time 7 p.m. Location Whitmore Hill Mansion. Attire formal. Her eyebrows pinched. Whitmore? She knew of the Whitmore estate. Everyone in Elmsworth did. The massive mansion on the hill had belonged to James Whitmore, the billionaire who vanished years ago after losing his family. The estate had since become a mystery, abandoned, overgrown, and shrouded in rumors. Ineka turned the envelope over, looking for clues. Was this a joke? That evening, as she cleaned Mr. James's tiny living room, she decided to mention it. Someone sent me an invitation to the Whitmore estate, she said, trying to laugh it off. A dinner. It must be a mistake. Why would anyone invite me to a mansion like that? Mr. James, seated in his usual corner, looked at her with amusement dancing in his eyes. Maybe someone finally noticed the queen inside you. She chuckled. I'm serious. I don't even have anything fancy to wear. He tilted his head. What if I told you it wasn't a mistake? She blinked. What do you mean? He leaned forward and whispered with a wink. Go. Just go. Some doors only open when you knock. Confused but curious, Ineka went. She borrowed a dress from Clara and used her last savings to get her hair done at a small salon. When she arrived at the mansion gates Saturday evening, her breath caught. The Whitmore estate was no longer abandoned. The gates were wide open, lined with lanterns. The grounds had been restored, the grass trimmed, the fountain running. Several luxury cars were parked in the circular driveway. A butler in white gloves welcomed her. Miss Ineka Morris? She nodded slowly. Right this way, ma'am. Mr. Whitmore is expecting you. Her heart pounded. She was led through grand marble halls into a stunning dining room with a long table covered in silverware and fresh flowers. Everything sparkled like it belonged in a movie. But the biggest shock came when she saw who stood at the head of the table. Mr. James. Clean-shaven, upright, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit. No crutch, no blanket. Ineka froze. What's going on? Mr. James smiled warmly. My name is James Whitmore. She gasped. He walked toward her, each step strong and confident. I owe you the truth, Ineka. I'm not a beggar. I never was. I'm a billionaire, and I've been living in hiding for over a decade. The room spun. I lost everything that mattered to me, my wife, my children, and when that happened, I couldn't trust anyone. All I saw were hands stretched out, asking, wanting, pretending, so I left it all behind, hid who I was, and watched the world from the shadows. I was waiting to see if kindness still existed for those who had nothing to give in return. He paused, his voice cracking. And then I met you. Tears welled in Ineka's eyes. You gave without asking. You served without expecting. You loved like your mother raised you to. His voice softened. I know about her. I read your story. I had you looked into discreetly. I know what you've survived and what you've become. She tried to speak, but no words came. I have no heirs, no family left, but I need someone who can carry on what I started. Someone whose heart is richer than gold. I want that person to be you. Ineka gasped again. Sir, I'm just a cleaner. You are much more than that, he interrupted gently. You are a light in a world full of darkness. He gestured to a lawyer standing nearby. This is Mr. Graham. The estate documents have already been prepared. The properties, businesses, foundation funds, they're all waiting. I want to name you my sole beneficiary and partner in rebuilding this legacy, not just with wealth, but with heart. Ineka's legs almost gave way. But why me? Mr. James smiled. Because when I had nothing, you gave me everything. At that moment, she felt something shift deep within her. Not pride, not shock, purpose. And just outside the estate gates, hiding in the shadows, was Marcus, her ex-boyfriend, his mouth open as he listened to everything from behind the iron fence, his hands clenched into fists. She gave food to a beggar, he muttered, and he turned out to be a billionaire? In his bitterness, he failed to see what Mr. James had seen all along. The worth of a heart is never measured by what it receives, but by what it gives. A month passed. Ineka's life transformed like a dream spun in gold. She didn't just inherit Mr. James's wealth, she inherited his vision. With his guidance, she reopened the Whitmore Foundation, this time focused on helping orphans, widows, and the homeless across the country. She named the first shelter after her mother, Mary's Haven. The media couldn't get enough of the story. Orphan girl inherits billionaire's empire after acts of kindness? The girl who fed a beggar and found a kingdom. But Ineka remained grounded. She still rode her old bicycle from time to time, still cooked meals for the nearby shelter, still smiled at strangers like she did back when no one knew her name. Her story inspired people across Elmsworth and beyond. Those who once mocked her now clapped when she passed. Clara, her best friend, cried the day Ineka bought her a brand new salon and gave her the keys. "I never thought someone like me could sit in a mansion," Clara whispered. Ineka hugged her. "You sat in my heart before I had one." As for Marcus, word got around that he tried to return to Ineka with a bouquet of flowers and an awkward apology, but she gently declined him at the gates of her new home. "I don't hate you, Marcus," she said, "but you loved me only when I looked like potential, not when I looked like purpose." He hung his head and left, learning that regret was a heavy pillow to sleep on. Mr. James, now known again as James Whitmore, became her closest mentor and friend. His health improved. Laughter returned to his life. For the first time in years, the mansion echoed with joy instead of silence. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Ineka and James sat on the mansion's balcony, sipping tea. "You've done more in 30 days than most do in 30 years, he said with a proud smile. She looked at the fading sky. "Do you think my mother would be proud?" "I know she would," he answered softly. "She left the world too early, but she left it in good hands." Ineka nodded, her voice quiet. Her last words were, "Always help people, no matter your situation. I thought it would be the death of me, but it became my life." James raised his glass. "To Mary, and to you, her living legacy." As the stars filled the sky, Ineka thought of the journey that had brought her here. The nights she cried herself to sleep in the orphanage. The mornings she worked with an empty stomach. The times she was laughed at, called foolish, abandoned by love. But in the end, it all led here. Not just to wealth, but to meaning. She had proved something more powerful than any headline or check. That kindness was not weakness. It was a crown. And she wore it now, not on her head, but in the way she lived, loved, and gave. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson from this story is that true kindness is not measured by what you have, but by what you give. Even when you have nothing. Never stop doing good, because blessings often come when and where you least expect them. Choose to be kind today, not for a reward, but because the world desperately needs hearts like yours. If you were touched by Ineka's story, don't keep it to yourself. If you believe kindness is still powerful, comment your favorite part of the story or someone who has shown you kindness. Share this story to inspire others. Subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories that will warm your heart and stir your soul.